Hello everyone, it's Jake from The Sound Architect. This month I've been taking a look at Krotos' new offering, the Sound Design Bundle 2. In this package they've thrown all of their best tools at us. So it includes Dehumanizer 2, Weaponizer Fully Loaded, which is an upgrade from the Weaponizer Basic, so we've got extra sounds there. Reformer Pro, which is an upgrade from the free Reformer tool. That allows us to use dynamic input rather than just audio input, so we can use MIDI and we can get continuous signals out of the plugin without having to put audio in all the time. Also thrown in with that is the Krotos Bundle 1 library, which are 8 or 9 of those extendable, separately sold Reformer libraries. That includes Fruit and Veg, Gun Foley, Leather Sounds and Tiger Growls, as well as a few others. So you can get going with Reformer straight away. We also have an upgrade for Weaponizer in the form of the Battle Bundle, and this includes more hand-to-hand combat, sword attacks, as well as body falls and impacts, so that you can really flesh out a more medieval type violent scene. And when you sequence them all in Weaponizer together, you get a really fleshed out battle, which is really impressive. So we're going to be taking a look at that. And also, most excitingly, this bundle includes the new vehicle sound design tool, Igniter. And this is the full tank version with extra sounds where you can make sci-fi vehicles or things that don't even exist. So that's really fun. We're going to be taking a look at that. At The Sound Architect, we've previously written a few articles on these products. So Dehumanizer 2 we've covered, as well as Weaponizer. And Jordan did a great review of Reformer when it came out. I'm going to be looking at the differences between Reformer and Reformer Pro. Also going to be looking at what the Battle Bundle has to bring, and then also mainly we're going to be doing a deep dive on Igniter, because that is the brand new, really exciting tool that's just come out. When you buy the Sound Design Bundle, you're saving about £600, so it's definitely worth thinking about if you are a Krotos fan. Alright, let's get going. Okay, so here we have Reformer Pro. Looks very similar to Reformer, funnily enough. Here we have the library chooser down here. So we have an XY pad, and you can have up to 4 libraries active at any one time. This little ball here chooses how the mix is between the 4 libraries at any time. So obviously this would just be black leopard, this would just be leather, and somewhere here would be a mix of all 4. The normal Reformer takes audio input. So let me give you an example of that. So that gives us a bit of a black leopard. That was me roaring into my microphone. And you kind of get the picture. So according to what you do with your mouth, it picks samples from the library and it plays it back to you. Some amazing things that you can do with this XY pad. So if I put it in the middle, you get a mixture of all of these at once. And a great thing that you can do with Reformer Pro is instead of having to have mic input, you can go onto this little jack input thing here, and you can either use MIDI to control it, or you can use a continuous signal generated by Reformer itself. That makes sound design so much easier because you don't have to worry about layering. It's already done inside the tool for you. And we just made like some crazy cyber leopard that is eating either a person in a leather jacket, or maybe is ripping the skin off another animal or something like that, all within there just by dragging a thing around and getting some automated signal out, which is incredible. The other thing that you can do is you can even expose these envelopes So you can just draw automation tracks in, and if you're doing it to picture, you can be really specific over the sounds that you get out. So all of those are completely automatable. And you would just add points like so. What else do we have in Reformer? We have, you can have a master wet or dry, so you can obviously keep your original sound and just use the effect from Reformer as a layer. We have a brick wall limiter in here, but it looks like we also have some sort of compression, which is quite nice. You can get it to react quickly, so you get a faster transient. And transient controls likewise, you can ignore certain transients, or you can ignore the ones that are shorter or longer than what you're looking for, and that will change the output of the plugin. So that's kind of what we've got from Reformer Pro now, just a whole load more control that we did than we did over the Reformer Free engine. All right, let's take a look at the Battle Bundle in Weaponizer and see what we've got. We have done a review on Weaponizer previously, but we're going to be taking a look at the Battle Bundle and what that brings. One thing that I would say before we get into the Battle Bundle is that this library has made me see how this tool can be thought of more of as a general sampler. It's so powerful. You don't need to just stick to these presets, as useful as they are, and we're going to go into those. But the fact that you can bring your own samples in and you can layer them up, each of these layers, the onset, the body, the thump, the tail, they each have 4 banks within each. And each of those banks can take many samples for randomization. Up here, where I'm just hovering my mouse now, you can switch between round robin and random modes. So each time that it's triggered, when you hit fire, it picks a random one from each bank on each layer. So that's up to 16 completely different sounds at any one time. You can automate and randomize how much, or modulate I should say, how much the speed changes by, how much the level changes by. So it's a really powerful sampler that either gives you massive control or massive freedom in terms of randomization, so you can get amazing source out and then keep that in your own library for the future. So this is a fantastic tool. Now, that's my little rave about it. Let's go and listen to some of these presets. The Battle Bundle comes with 3 subfolders in it. We've got Swords and Shields, Body Impacts, and Body Falls. There are tons of presets here, really, just for you to start playing with. I think my favourite that I found earlier was the Executioner. Let's take a listen to this one. And I really like that, just because you kind of wonder if it's anything else is going to come, and then 3 layers come at the end. I just think that's really nice. It's almost like you've got a little timeline within your project, and you can draw that scale out as much as you want. So it's a nice little enclosed space for you to design that one sound, and then you can record that out, or you can save it for later and put it in your library. So that's really cool. We also have a bunch of impulse responses you can play with in Weaponizer, and the other 2 subfolders, the Body Impacts and Body Falls, really play with those. So Body Falls, we've got loads of different materials: concrete, dirt, wood, metal, and they're all in different spaces, and they all have different. If you go to the tail layer, you can drop a new impulse response in, and if you have your own, again, you can drop your own impulse responses in. And that's a huge part of this type of sound design, making sure your tails are consistent and making sure that it all makes sense. So it's great that you have this special reverb module in here. What else do we have with the battle bundle? The body impacts. One thing that's really great when you are using MIDI with Weaponizer, is that working? Yes. Okay. Is you press a C for all the layers, you press a C sharp for the body layer, no, sorry, for the onset layer, a D for the body, an E flat for the thump, and an E for the tail. So you can split them out and you can combine them whatever combination you want, or you can get them all to play together, which is the same as hitting the fire button. So again, loads of control. Krotos don't really want to nail us down to anything, which is lovely. Alright, that's probably enough for the battle bundle. Let's take a look at Igniter. Igniter is Krotos' new vehicle sound design tool, and at the heart of it is a granular sound engine. It can be as simple or as complex as you want, but to get started all you have to do is choose a preset from the menu. So I've gone for this Ferrari 348. You just hit the engine stop button, and then you can control it by turning the revs up and down, and this is automatable, so you can use an envelope or a LFO or something to control the revs in your DAW. So straight out of the box, it's really easy to use. You get some great sounding samples. You can go even more deep on this if you want to. So you can mix between the perspectives. Would you rather have your mic nearer the engine or the exhaust? Or somewhere in between. Some presets are set up with a manual gearbox, which means that you can control the load on the engine according to the RPM. And some are set up with an auto gearbox, so all you have to do is choose whether you want to accelerate or brake, and it will continue to drive the revs up or draw the revs down according to this. So this is almost one layer separate. It's acceleration rather than velocity. So if you get a preset with an automatic gearbox, let's take a look at this one. All we have to do when we draw the revs up is we can now see the brake or accelerate increasing, and you can hear that as the longer that I leave this on accelerate, the higher the revs continue to go. And it's all managed for you, so that's really simple, out-the-box functionality, which is incredible. For more sci-fi sounds, so the full tank expansion, which this one is, comes with even more presets for sci-fi vehicles, and you can see that they tend to not use the granular engine at all, and just tend to use the synth. So you can loop all of these together. You have up to 5 oscillators in the synth tab. You can choose which ones you want to use, which mixture of waveforms you'd like to use, and there's a blend option so you can mix between them as you like. You can pick the output frequency of the oscillator signal and how loud you want it to be, so you can mix them together. It also has FM and AM modulation as well as vibrato. So mixing those together is great because it gives you loads of flexibility, and you can create either vehicles which don't exist, or you can put sweeteners underneath the existing vehicles, like a low hum or something to support the engine as it moves off from taxi. So that's a really nice little sweetener level. The one-shot page, you can drag and drop either the samples from the library that you get with Igniter, or you can even drop your own in. By going to the Files tab, you can find your own samples and drop those in, similar to Weaponizer. Drop those in. I think this only, so it's not unlike Weaponizer, you can only put one sample per bank here. You get the playback speed, and you can either choose that do that with an envelope or just with the knob. And you can choose how loud you want it to be, again, knob or envelope. And also each one of these sample banks here has a timeline connected to it, and this timeline is controlled by the Revs controller over here. So everything sort of comes back to that one control. So it's nice and central. The good thing here is what you can do is you can almost use it like a little sequencer. So we've got a Foley bank here of tire textures or in-game Foley or wipers, and you can just trigger them to happen whenever you like. So this doesn't have any engine sounds in it. We've just got a turning signal, and that will, this one here is triggered by this here. So when the rev counter goes above that triangle, it will trigger that sound. There you go. If you flip that round to be backwards, when the revs go back down, it will trigger the sound. If it's a diamond shape, it will trigger it both ways. And if you put a stop sign, a stop mark, it will stop it as soon as it hits that stop sign. So according to the speed of the revs increase, you can choose what the behaviors are. The final layer is a looping layer. This just allows you to add extra detail to the sound that you're building. There are 4 sections, one for each of the sample banks. You can choose how wide you would like a bit of the sample to be, and again, that is controlled by the rev counter. So you can see how things crossfade in. So at low revs, it will be this sample playing, and then as it goes higher, it will be this one increasing. Okay. So again, loads that you can do here. The most powerful thing when you're looking at creating your own engines or creating your own behaviors is the mod section. Let me try and find one that uses this. There we go. So this Audi R8, it's got manual gears, so you don't actually have access to the gear changes so much in this granular system. And sadly, the only drawback of this system so far is you can't bring your own sample packs in, because it's sort of nailed down. They only give you access to either choosing between respectively the engine or the exhaust. You can choose between those, but it is packaged up in these KEP files, which Krotos have made themselves. The way that the mod works is you have up to 8 mod curves for each sound that you're making, and you can draw your own curve shapes or whatever you'd like to have. Again, the cursor controls the rev cycle. You can put as many parameters as you like on each one. There's no limit at all as to how many parameters you can add, and you can put them on any curve that you want. And basically what happens is the behavior then, as the revs increase, so do the numbers on the dials. You can see them moving up and down as I change the revs there. So this gives us great control as to what happens at low revs and what happens as the revs increase. In the mod section, you also have an LFO with several wave shape types. Which just gives us a bit of variation at standstill. It stops the granular engine sound like it's repeating the same thing if the revs don't increase. Which if I turn the LFO, you can hear LFO off, you can hear sounds very similar, like a very short loop, which is exactly how a granular synthesizer works. That just gives us a bit of variation, which is nice. Once you are happy with your sound and the way that it modulates across the revs range, we have the mixer section down here. Each area in Igniter is given a channel in the mixer, so you can mix them all manually like this. They all have their own effects chain down here, and you have a bunch of effects units that you can throw on, including a Doppler, which is really useful for vehicle sound design, a Convolution Reverb, which is a brand new Convolution Reverb that Krotos has written specifically for Igniter, as is the Parametric EQ, a completely new module which isn't featured in any of their other plugins. You can pan each layer, obviously, as you can see, and we also have a send to the effects bus. So all 4 of these you can send to an effects bus with a different effects chain, almost like a wet dry signal, and then all 5 of those are bounced down to the master, which then again has its own effects chain. So you can really build up and build up and build up until and then at the end you get a nice cohesive sound. So even if it's completely off the wall, it still sounds cohesive. Let's take a listen to some of these presets and see what we have. The full tank expansion that I was talking about not only gives us access to these amazing sounding vehicles, so the normal one comes with cars and trucks, helicopters, motorbikes and planes. The full tank also has these extra ones, but we get different perspectives. So in-car, pass-bys, ignition and idle. We've got electric cars. We have different spaces, different IRs thrown on there. We have the manual gear stick shift. So a lot of detail is thrown into this full tank. So I would say it's definitely worth stretching a bit for these extras, because it really makes it believable, especially when you combine it with the one-shots that we were showing earlier. It really sells the whole thing and makes it easier to create a really believable scene if you're track laying. The full tank also comes with some amazing sci-fi vehicles. And there we see the Doppler effect, which sounds great. So I think that covers everything in Igniter. As you can see, it's a very powerful engine. There's lots of stuff going on, lots of things that you can play with. And again, with just like Weaponizer, it's such a powerful sampler, and it's great that Krotos have given us the freedom to throw our own samples in, and you don't even have to use it for vehicle sound design if you don't want to. I think it's an amazing, amazing product with all of these effects thrown in and the control that the mixer gives you. We all know that Krotos at the moment are the only company doing something like this. So if this is your bag, I would definitely recommend getting it as part of the Sound Design Bundle 2, which is the new product they are just releasing. Savings of £600 over buying them individually. I think normal Igniter goes for about $530, and the Igniter full tank is about $880 with all the extra sounds thrown in. I worked it out that if you buy all of these things together in the Sound Design Bundle, you're basically getting the basic Igniter for free. So definitely worth checking that out. Thanks for listening to my review today. I'm Jake, and this is the Sound Architect.